I don't know where you've been. Maybe you haven't been on social media because I'm still ill and I've been scrolling like crazy. And I came across a reel that was done by a supplier for a wedding who basically said, I can't believe a photographer once tried to charge me £150 before letting me see images that they'd taken at a wedding. And people were like, oh my God, that's really greedy, blah, blah, blah. And that's pretty much what her social media following. I'm not going to send any hate towards her because we're freaking adults. That's not what we do. But there is an element of truth here, which I feel has been forgotten, okay? It is not greed. It's law, contracts, GDPR, and simple respect for another professional's work. And yet the internet went wild because too many people don't understand how this actually works. And I was surprised how many business owners, honey, you're in business. People, we're in business. We need to understand. Didn't understand how it works. So we're going to buckle up because this is going to get uncomfortable for a lot of you. And I'm sick, so I'm probably not going to be as restrained as I normally am. So let me just go back to this reel if I remember correctly. The supplier supplied a product for this wedding. The wedding happened. The photographer covered said wedding. This supplier wanted access to those professional images, and the photographer said that will cost you £150. And this supplier implied that she felt annoyed that she had to pay £150 just to see the images. And I'll say it's semi-viral, and I will say I got sent this by couples, and they were like, "Please don't ever send stuff to our suppliers without us knowing." And I think actually a lot of couples were, how do I put this point? Couples who's had their wedding were very keen that to say, "I think she's wrong to be annoyed about this." And then there were people who are not involved in weddings who were like, "Oh, why? It's only images." And that's where the problem lies. If you're getting your business advice from people who are not in business, okay. So she kind of I don't want to put words in this lovely lady's mouth because one, we weren't there, but you put it online, you've got yourself some traction. Yeah. And the public reaction was pretty split. There were non-photographers saying that's outrageous, just share the images. But actual suppliers, photographers particularly, would say, hold up, there's a lot more involved in it. GDPR, contracts, copyright, and actual business practices. And I want to tell you, this is not a new debate. This happens across florists, venues, makeup artists, planners, bands, you name it. Okay. And I am very shocked that people who are in business do not at least get a basic grasp and understanding of what even accounts as GDPR, a contract, or copyright. Like I think I wrote, "Tell me that you don't understand this." And she said, "Well, it was just to access them." But the fact is, if he allowed this, I mean, this person allows you access to these images, you could screenshot them. That is them protecting their work. Okay. Now, I want to bring it down. This is open for debate. The photographer, however, cannot legally hand over images to a third party without their actual client's consent. The clients paid for images for their use. They didn't pay for it for that photographer to be there, for the photographer to go, oh, I'll just hand it out to all these suppliers as well so they can use it for their marketing, so they can use something that the client is paid for to essentially get free marketing. So passing those images on without permission has a huge potential GDPR breach, which is essentially sharing the personal data, because images are covered by that, with third parties. Okay. So there's a massive potential fine that could automatically just be chucked on this photographer. Okay. So this photographer has to then do some admin to go, hey, I need permission. Is that okay? Blah, blah, written permission signed. Also, photographers in the United Kingdom automatically, unless otherwise stated, own the copyrights to the images that they take. Okay, unless the contract explicitly says otherwise. So while the suppliers may want to use images for their business, which means it becomes commercial use, it actually requires a license. Okay, a license, because you want to take somebody else's work that they've created and go, oh, I really want to use it. Well, it's of my work. That's another debate that happens, but it's of my work, this photo. It's of your work in a situation that the photographer has created. They chose the settings, they chose where to focus it, they used their equipment and you're like, it's of your work, but it's not. You did not pay for that to happen. You were paid for a job to supply flowers. You did not get, as an additional bonus, free images from that photographer. Now, I know a thing that has been coming out, and I hear this from my fellow photographers, where somehow suppliers think that they can automatically assume right over anyone's images. Honey, you can't do that in photography. You can't do that in the UK law. You actually have to have it agreed to by the photographer. And if you are not liaising with that photographer hired to get those images, You cannot force it because the images actually are a physical entity are owned by that photographer and it's otherwise stated. You can't go, well, I'm a supplier and I don't know, what wedding suppliers do we have? Let's do florist. I'm a florist. I made those flowers. Then that's mine. I demand that after this, I get photos, and it's in my contract. Well, you need to then have a contract with the photographer and also have the client involved. You can't just assume you get rights to it, okay? You might want to use those images for your business, but like I stated, that's a commercial use. Okay, we go. I'm just gonna put them on Facebook, honey. It's still a commercial use. Why do we wherever you freaking put them, commercial use? No, I don't think 150 is a random greedy number. It's quite a nice licensing fee for usage rights. Now, I am also here for the debate that yes, you can hand them over freely. 100%. If you want to, you can. But don't be mad if someone says, actually, no, if you want to use them for your business, no, you can pay for them. Like, I'm handing over my work. And people go, oh, yeah, I'll tag you, I'll tag you. That's great. Unless like this is awful for me to say, a tag isn't necessarily worth a lot. I don't know many people who get recommendations and go, "Oh, the florist recommended me to you," and go, "Yeah, that's amazing. It's worth loads of money to me." Okay. I personally I've only charged one person for licensing images from a wedding after I got permission from my couple. And the reason I charged them is that they were a very large band and they had a new singer and they were like in the breakdown when they were doing it, can you do the whole shoot? So rather than me have a break, I photographed for them and I said, as long as my bride and groom were happy with it, but I was like, okay, these are going to go on all your promo, because they had to get this promo out and they wanted a cheaper version than, booking a session. So I did charge them. I have zero issue with sharing my images, but you ask me, don't assume you have rights and certainly don't get annoyed because I place value on my work that I do. I was paid to supply images to the couple, not to supply them to you. If you want me to do that, you go, oh, it's just a simple transfer, but it's a transfer of my work. Like I'm not saying that there isn't there's no right or wrong on charging or not charging. People go, "Oh, well, it'll get you recommendations." I would like to think that no business would slate another business because they charge their worth for their work. I think that's an incredibly petty, nasty, vile thing to do. Now, I don't charge typically, like I said, and I don't get angry if a photographer does. I don't think that's awful. I remember a videographer filming some B-roll of me and said, "Would you like some B-roll of you working? I've got some. Would you like it?" And I said, "Oh, maybe." He goes, "Yeah, it's just 50 quid." And I was like, "Yeah, bang you, mate. Chuck it at me." Because, evergreen content, I can use that. It was actually me dad dancing in a field that I mostly use. You might have seen it. Um, so I understand the value. The fact is, I don't think everyone else sees the value, and when people try and force the value to be seen, i.e., £150 on this product, they go, "Well, blah, blah," and all it tells me is that you don't value photography. That's what it feels like, and I'm sure this person was not doing that, and let's not go after anybody on this, but it happens a lot more than you think. I remember a venue used my images in all their marketing but wouldn't put me as a preferred supplier because they were locked in with this other guy, but never used any of his work in the marketing. And I was like, okay, so when people ask, do you tell them that's my work? No, no, no. Well, then why are you using my work anyway? Oh, the couple let us use it. The contract with a couple is for their personal use. They have no rights to send it over to a third party. Oh, well, they just say it to us. You have a legal obligation to check you have the rights to use those images beyond just taking the word of someone who has personal use. Like, and they were, and I'm not here to be a douchebag. I'm not here. I was just like, if you could just credit me, that would be amazing. Do you know how many times I don't get credited for work? Like makeup artists will do it and not credit me. I will, if I know the suppliers, credit them if I can. And sometimes I can't credit them because they're gone before I've gone and I've asked, I've not had that permission. But as soon as somebody says to me, hey, I did the makeup on that wedding, I will tag them in it. I don't have a problem with that. Contracts is something that people really don't understand. I know this is really prevalent in wedding industry. And there was a big thing on I think it was Radio 4 about this fairly recently about the fact that people are working and they're not having contracts in weddings and stuff. If you don't have a contract, I'm not even hiring you. I don't know why anyone's hiring if you don't have a legit contract. Contracts set boundaries. Who can use the work, where, what for, what purpose. Suppliers often expect images as a freebie, but the expectation doesn't equal entitlement, okay? If a florist bouquet is featured in a magazine, they don't just give it away for free for future ads. So why should photographers, why should I hand it over? Okay. So why, I don't know how else to say this. Like, you were paid to supply something. You supplied it. I'm now paid to supply them with images. You don't get assumptions on having that. I think that's basically what I'm trying to say. There's nothing wrong with a £150 fee on it, but the outrage online was like rah, 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 rah. Now, there is a wider issue here. Suppliers often build portfolios off the back of professional photographers, okay? Because the photographer's there to shoot the wedding. They have no impact on what flowers show up. That's the bride and groom's. But how many people compensate the photographer for thank you for getting me enough pictures so I can show people I'm not saying, why do I always go to florists? I think it's because I love florists. I've worked with some amazing florists, by the way. It's really hard because when I was doing research for this, I was like, have I had any problems with suppliers? No. Have I had any douchebag suppliers? No. But there was the odd DJ along the way, but no. So I was like, I was going to bring a friend on, but she got busy. I was like, oh, so I'm just going to do this on my own. I don't have many douchebag suppliers. I have, there was a choir once. There was a choir once where it wasn't at me though. I'll tell you this story really quickly. There was a choir at this church wedding, and the videographer had set up his tripod with the approval of the priest, and everyone was really happy. The choir master didn't like the fact that it blocked the view. Just a tripod, with a microphone on. Please understand this. Blocked the view of the choir looking at the bride and groom. I was like, it's nothing to do with you. You're just there to sing. I know it's really harsh. So she moved it, and the photographer noticed that it has to be there. It was like when I say tripod, I'm talking like one of those little small ones, and it was on like what do you call it? Like a balustrading, it was on what do you call it? The ones that are bendy tripods, So it was just there to catch the audio from them. She didn't like it. She kept moving it, and and it was just, I think that, and the video was like, I can't do this. You have to let me leave it there. The priest is there. And in the end, the priest was like, just let her move it to where she wants. And he's like, well, then I don't record their singing, and then they're not on the video. They'll just be in the back like a droning noise. And she got really annoyed, and he was like, well, then that's the optimum spot for you. And I think seeing that made me, yeah. Something quite weird about watching a priest and a choir master give each other death glares. But yeah, I was glad it wasn't to do with me. I just sat there like, I'm just here to take the photos. I'm just here to take the photos. But I don't have many douchebag stories from suppliers. I don't. But I do see it's quite a wider issue that people just assume they can take it. Sometimes I've had people just lift my work off of my Facebook or off of my Instagram and just like assume they can have it. And I've sent them a message going, hey, next time ask me. Two, my contract is I don't supply these images. My couple have said they don't want them supplied to suppliers or they haven't granted permission. You need to tag me. And they're like, oh, I'm like, you're in business. How do you not understand the legal side? Why are you blank? And that's when I go, you're not a very professional photographer. You're not a very professional supplier because you should understand this. Because I tell you what, if somebody, the amount of times I'm in these Facebook groups, goes, that's my pictures of my, is it balloon art that was lately? The balloon art stuff? That's my balloons you're using. Oh, yeah, but I'm doing some. You can't take that. So it's funny how they'll go mad if someone takes their pictures, but they're happily taking ours. I did have to ask a few friends if they had any horror stories, and there were some horrific horror stories. So if you have any, please share them with me because I would love to know more. Honestly, I love a good horror story. Equally, if you are a supplier and you've had a douchebag photographer video, let me know because we are not holier than thou. I have seen and heard, and it's been awful. Okay. I know this. I mean, suppliers themselves also don't give away their services for free. Imagine going to a florist. It's always the florist I'm at. I'm so sorry, florist. I'm so sorry. For asking, oh, can you give me a bouquet? I'll send you pictures. And you'll be like, no, because that's worth something to me. And yet, photographers are expected to hand over their version of the bouquet for free. Makeup artists, venues, florists all request free images. And when handled well, photographers can build supplier collaborations into their contract. But when handled badly, suppliers complain online and damage reputations while not acknowledging the legalities and actually can find themselves in an incredibly awkward situation where their unprofessionalism is very much highlighted and damages them. Okay, I can actually tell you about. Right, so one of the stories I'm allowed to share is, although I did not work with them, my bride and groom were booking a cake baker. right? A cake maker, baker, cake person. Yeah. Sorry, cake people. What did you call it? Are you a baker or a maker? I guess you bake cakes. Anyway, the cake person um was creating, they'd saw some pictures online they really liked and they wanted this cake. And they were, "Oh, yeah, yeah, it's fine." And she said, "Well, have you got a contract?" So we said, no, 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 but what I want is X amount of money for the deposit and then X amount of money 2 weeks before the wedding, and then I'll send the delivery." And my client was like, "Well, we need a contract." "Oh, no, 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 it's fine, it's fine." My client said, "No, I want a contract and an invoice." "Oh, no, no, it's fine. Oh, no one else ever asked for one." And anyway, this supplier, they went onto a Facebook group that I actually adminned and was talking about said wedding. I cottoned on quite quickly. It was potentially my client because the date, and I already knew about the type of cake they were looking to get when they booked me. And I was like, maybe it's about my client. And she was going on and on about how dare they ask me for a contract? I mean, seriously, what, I'm a professional. And everyone kept saying, "Oh my God, people are so like bridezilla." And I was like, you legally are required to have contracts and invoices. You're a business. You are required. And she was like, "No, no." I went, "No, no, no, because you're processing clients' data." I'm not. Well, you have their name, their phone number, their bank details. You need to be GDPR compliant." And suddenly the post vanished. Like, imagine running a business and not understanding. Like I've just said I'm going to be a cake maker. I don't care about hygiene. Obviously, she did. She had a 5 star. I shouldn't be a douche. Um, and I'm not going to care about the contracts. I'm not going to care about anything. I don't know. But I've seen it more and more where suppliers are, and I will just say, I hate when I'm going to say this, so please, please understand, it's just my experience of what I've noticed. In certain types of Facebook groups, it's mostly the Facebook groups, like the budgety ones. No shame on that, honey. You worked your budget. I mean, like, why does that sound negative? You can have a budget of 20 grand and a budget of 500. Like, it's still a budget. It makes no sense to me. But, there are people who behave in a way that is shady, and they think it's perfectly acceptable. And I've seen where makeup artists are like, "Oh my God, she won't even give me pictures to show on my portfolio." Well, if you want those pictures, contact that photographer and they can tell you how it's going to happen. If you want pictures of the hair, get it done. If you want, I've got to be working. That's another thing I get a lot of from makeup and hair. So I've got to be working. Well, yeah, but I need the bride's permission to send them to you. Oh, for God's sake, could you just send them to me? No, I can't just send them to you. One, I have to send them via GDPR compliancy because it's got the bride's details in. I need their explicit permission before I can send it to you. And I get that a lot. Now, I can actually share them on my page, so they've said, but you as a supplier cannot take that from my page or anywhere I've posted it and put it on yours because you don't have permission. And when they go, "It's already on the internet." Yes, with parameters specific to me and my client, not between you and my client, and not between me, you, and my client. I don't understand why people find this hard to understand, but I think it's the age of, like, people just don't see photography, videography as anything wrong. They don't see it as a physical entity anymore because it's gone digital. You're not looking at physical prints, maybe. This is another topic of discussion we could go into. I have to say, I get it. Florists, venues, makeup artists, you want those gorgeous professional images to show off your work, and you should have them. But it shouldn't just be assumed it's free unless it's been agreed. A photographer is not greedy for charging. They're a business protecting their work, their copyright, their client's privacy, and their income. Entitlement comes when suppliers think they deserve it without asking, without consent, without paying. There is a solution. Contracts, conversations, collaborations. Photographers should consider creating maybe supplier packs or image sharing policies. Suppliers should budget for photography just like they budget for stock, branding, and advertising because it comes into that. And everyone needs to remember exposure don't pay no bills, but respect can go a long way. So, was the photographer wrong to charge, or was the supplier out of line, or no, that's harsh. Was the supplier not educated enough in how the business works? Because honestly, I can see on both sides. There's a bigger problem though, is that there's so little understanding out there on the legalities, and that concerns me. And that's why we have these scammer groups coming up where people are like, "Oh, I've been scammed out of this. I've been scammed." We need to start having real conversations. Otherwise, we're going to just keep circling around the real fight. And every time one of these reels go viral, people jump all over it and it makes us feel bad. And we're like, am I right to charge? Have I done wrong? But now I want to hear from you, my loves. Have you as a supplier or someone who's been a supplier. That makes sense? No. Photographer. Let's go around that. Photographers, have you had suppliers demand images for free? Did you give them? Did you charge? Or are you a supplier who's listening and thinking, wait, did I do that? Did I get it free? Should I ask? Should I consider paying? I just want to have a debate, not an outrage. I mean, it is the Loud Lens and we're all about the photography middle finger, but let's converse because this seems like a great place for education, if you ask me. I am still sick, as you can probably hear, although hopefully when I run this through the audio tidy upperer, it's not even a real name, it might take out my nasal tones. But for that, I apologise. Drop me a message, tag me on Instagram, join the Loud Lens Facebook group, and let's stop shouting over reels and have some real conversation. Because honestly, I'm a little shocked how many people in business out there don't understand the legality of being in business. Take care. This is the Loud Lens. I'm going to go blow my nose now.